Is mounting on President Mugabe to step aside. He's been given that deadline, a clock counting down till noon local tomorrow. If he hasn't done it by then, they say they'll impeach him. And it was pretty extraordinary to be in that ZANU-PF headquarters as they listed through all of these purges from the party of Robert Mugabe, of course, and the First Lady and a whole lot of supporters of theirs, to cheers from the audience, many in that audience. Many of the leadership of the party, of course, were people who had backed Mugabe for many years. So some would say it's a cynical move, but certainly it reflects the brutal politics of right now, that the party is trying to push out the president because the military leaders have effectively taken control of the country. Robin?
David, in terms of what next, Emmerson Mnangagwa presumably will be replacing Mugabe as president of Zimbabwe, since he's the one that's being tipped to from numerous sources we've been speaking to, but also just in terms of ZANU-PF. I have been hearing from Zimbabweans on the ground, and I'm sure you have as well, that they really don't care who's in charge, that they just want economic prosperity and peace. Can you tell me if that's what you're hearing and what you make of that?
I think it's a little more complicated in that people are wanting to have a new dispensation. They want to see the back of Robert Mugabe, and yes, they want the economy to grow, but also they're realistic. There's a lot of discomfort amongst the opposition, amongst activists, about the fact that this may be Emmerson Mnangagwa coming into power here in Zimbabwe, which to many people would be more of the same. But to them, as you say, first steps first. And Robert Mugabe is still president of this country, at least on paper, until he resigns or is pushed out. That is the reality on the ground here. So the question really is, what will he do next? What will the president do next? Will he buckle to the power of the party and the people on the streets within the next 24 hours to potentially maintain some dignity? Or is he going to fight it towards Parliament and see his senior colleagues getting in the parliamentary building and effectively disowning him in public? So that's the very tough choices, of course, that face Robert Mugabe. Many Zimbabweans wouldn't really feel much sympathy for him at all, because he has presided over a near collapse of the economy, and any real feeling of affection for the president because of what he did for Zimbabwe decades ago has faded considerably with time. Robin?
Do you believe, David, despite the fact that people are so unhappy with Robert Mugabe and his policies, as you say, just a few weeks ago, everyone was singing his praises and you wouldn't dare speak a nasty word about President Mugabe. Do you think that Zimbabweans, particularly the older ones who regard him as a struggle hero, have the stomach to see him impeached and perhaps even humiliated? Or do you think that that page has turned?
I think it's really, unfortunately, irrelevant what they think in terms of the politics, the brutal politics of this country. Yes, there might be some elder Zimbabweans who will feel, sad for the situation of Robert Mugabe, but really this is being fought at the top echelons of power amongst people in power, those who control the guns in the country and those that control the politics of this country, which, for a long time, ordinary Zimbabweans have felt they haven't necessarily had the say to affect their lives, particularly with elections over the years, with allegations of rigging and stolen elections. Zimbabweans, I think, are very, very jaded with what politicians can offer them. But at the same time, we shouldn't take away from that emotional moment that is happening potentially now. You saw those tens of thousands of people on the streets cheering, calling for Robert Mugabe to step down. Those are very genuine emotions. Those weren't cynical emotions. And there really is a sense that this country is going through a watershed moment. A lot of people telling me that, let them have this moment, and then tomorrow is a day to discuss tomorrow. Robin?
All right, thank you so much for your reporting. David McKenzie, live in Harare. Helm of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Emmerson Mnangagwa is his name. His nickname is the Crocodile. Eddie Cross, a former opposition member of Zimbabwe's parliament, told me about him just a short while ago.
Well, he's a barrister, highly educated. He's a brilliant organizer. He's a master strategist. This is the man who really rolled over my party in 2013. He was the mastermind behind that operation. He's a very capable minister. When he was Minister of Finance for an extremely short period of time, the permanent secretary for the ministry told me that he was the best Minister of Finance they'd ever had. And that is praise indeed from the professionals. So he's a man of great capacity. He's a ruthless man. This is the man who guided Uruhundi, which is genocide in Matabeleland. This is the man behind Murabatsina, where 1.2 million people were displaced in a matter of days. So he's not a man, he's feared. When he walks into Parliament as head of government affairs, Parliament goes quiet. But to be frank, you've got to be a tough cookie to ride the tiger. And if you take over in Zimbabwe, you've got a lot of problems to deal with. And quite frankly, he probably is the only man in the country who could do that at this point in time.
Historic times in Zimbabwe still to come here on Connect the World as the Lebanese Prime Minister says he'll return